back to the Riverview Wellness Podcast. This is part 2 of our series on basically why you should do resistance training and this big systematic review meta-analysis that was done on it of over 30,000 participants, 100 and how many studies? 137
I think so, yep.
systematic reviews. That's a bunch of sub-studies under each of those systematic reviews. If you did not listen to episode 1 where we talked about the benefits of resistance training, you should absolutely go back and listen to that because you should do it in order. But I am your host, Sierra, and
Co-host.
we're here with Reed.
Yep. Here I
Reed,
am.
our co-host. What are we talking about today?
So we spent a lot of time in our last episode kind of talking about misconceptions people had and then just the general benefits that you can get, the kind of low barrier for entry, high payoff, right? Today, I think we're going to be looking a little bit more at the practical side of things, right? Like let's say you've started your resistance training, you've listened to the last episode, you said, gosh darn it, they're right. I've got to get
So
on the
many
programs.
benefits,
Yeah,
so good.
exactly. It's so easy to start, right? Let's say you've got all that out of the way. You're mentally ready to go. The main question for today, I think, should be, where do people go wrong in their programming, right? And what kind of what does programming look like for different people,
I want to get
right?
to myths in part 3, but what do they need to focus on is what I want to talk about.
In the programming?
Yeah, like what actually is going to matter.
Sure.
So, kind of what people get wrong. That's the inverse, but yeah.
Okay. So for me, the first thing kind of ties into some misconceptions people have is just, I think a lot of people get wrong the fact that the time commitment is a huge thing, right? So in programming, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, right, depending on your goals, right? We've kind of sorted briefly these into strength. Well, no, we didn't sort these out, I guess. These are pre-existing categories. But we've got strength and power and hypertrophy, right? And different programs are going to look different for different people. And those things have a variable amount of volume and frequency and effort for different days and different times of the week. And a lot of people don't understand necessarily what that's going to look like in their programming, right? They don't understand how to choose one of those things or what they should aim for or what to look for in their programming.
I think some
right?
people don't even know like what the difference is. We touched on it lightly, but just to
please.
give like a little bit of a, like strength is going to be you can lift something really heavy. Hypertrophy is going to be you can lift something that's medium heavy, maybe a little lighter a lot of times.
It's all relative, yeah.
Yeah, and it helps you get bigger muscles. And then power is going to be moving quickly. Speed,
Explosive,
power, explosive.
yeah. That's what I like to think of.
Which a lot of people don't think is important, but as we age, our ability to move quickly and explosively declines. And think practically, you want to be able to catch yourself if you fall. You want to be able to move quickly if there is a kid falling and you want to be able to catch them. I don't know, there's a uncomfortable, possibly dangerous situation. You want to be able to move quickly out of that if you need.
Yeah. What do you think if we're saying power is the ability to kind of react effectively and in a quick and, like if we're taking power as training and then extrapolating its practical purposes, right? What would you say those practical extrapolations from like strength and hypertrophy are, right? I can speak to hypertrophy easily and say like literally having more muscle mass, which is kind of the end goal of hypertrophy, putting on as much muscle as possible or to suit your goals, right? Literally helps your body function and process things like sugar way better, right? You've seen a skinny girl with diabetes. It's not because she's got a lot of fat. It's because she doesn't have a lot of muscle, right?
Yeah.
So we can look at hypertrophy and we can look at power. And we could say power is a certain kind of training. And if you do that certain kind of training, then you can literally react to things better. We can say hypertrophy is a certain kind of training. And if you do that kind of training, your quality of life gets better. Your body works better just day to day, moment to moment, right? What would you say that is for strength training?
The practical application of
I mean,
it.
because obviously there's probably a time and place for all of these, right?
Yeah. I think it's being able to carry your groceries, being able to pick up your
sure.
kids, your grandkids, being able to get out of a chair, because that's a 1 rep for some people, and it's tough.
Yeah. And I think it's super interesting as well to think about these now, and you start to see like when we start extrapolating these practical real world examples, you might want to say, from the style of training, you can see there's a huge amount of overlap between these, right? Like having more muscle because of hypertrophy training does actually make you stronger. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Well, even in the hypertrophy training, it's blood flow. It's teaching your body to utilize calories better. There's a term thrown out of like metabolic flexibility it's just being able to, I think majority of people want to be able to use the food that they are consuming more efficiently and not have their body store it as fat.
It gives you more wiggle room, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about that in the first episode where people think it's just for one thing, but the benefits are like across the board, right?
Yeah. So not to get like too bogged down with like, here's strength, here's hypertrophy, here's power. There's even actually muscle endurance too, which we won't try to into too much. You could always
nuance.
Just about any average person will probably have their hands in each bucket a little bit. And I think that's great. I think a well-rounded program where you just want to get healthy, you'll hit on each of those a little bit. If you have very specific goals, like you're training for military PST or
sports training,
or like that's where we might want to nuance it a little bit more. But the cool thing about this systematic review was like the what is the College of Sports Medicine? Is that who released this paper? American College of Sports Medicine. They released a lengthy statement back in 2009 about what is required for an effective resistance training program. And what they now released almost, I don't want to say like negates, but so much of what they had previously said isn't necessarily all that true for what is actually required of what makes an effective program. Like they literally put that in here on the discussion. Like some of those old recommendations we made, like we wouldn't necessarily make those recommendations for somebody now because it is so much more about adherence. I mean, what does it say? So for strength, like lift 2 times a week, try and make it heavy, try and use your full range. So that means like extend your arm all the way, pull your arm all the way in. It means lift your arm all the way up. Like don't do these partials.
No half reps.
And 2 to 3 sets. And it actually said after 3 sets, this was kind of interesting, that you could be getting dwindling returns, which I guess I've always thought like you want to do, I don't know, like we hear 5 by 5, do 5 sets of 5, which it doesn't mean you can't gain value from that. But what the take home is like 2 or 3 rounds, like you will see strength gains from that.
Yeah. I think the science becomes a little bit more specific the longer we have to like research it for sure. We definitely got more accurate. I think one of the conception, or I guess you'd say misconceptions I saw even just reading the study is at least culturally, there's this huge idea or this huge notion in hypertrophy training specifically of training to failure, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing that says that's wrong, obviously. But is it as effective as we thought? Not necessarily. There's nothing that says anymore that you need to fail every set, you know, like, and a lot of guys go into the gym with kind of a passing knowledge of like the exercise movements they should be doing. And they just think, I got to take this to the absolute extreme, right? Without realizing if I'm trying to be more optimal or prioritize certain goals, that's not necessarily the case. And I thought that was super interesting.
Well, and I've met people who dread, I don't know, like sometimes people just look at me and they think, you torture people for a living, which you're worse than I am. But there's a time and a place for a workout where you push yourself super hard and you go to failure. But for some people, they never really have to do workouts that are awful and painful. And I think that of those people, like, wow, you must have had like, I don't know, you don't work out anymore. You must have had a traumatizing gym experience and it was too much to handle and you couldn't maintain it. It's like,
well, I'll even say even this week, I'm on a rest week. So if you were to look at what I was doing as someone who didn't realize like that this is, you know, kind of slotted into a longer term program, right? You'd be maybe surprised if you had the understanding of like, there should be a minimum amount of effort that I'm expecting, right? because there's an ebb and flow to this stuff, and the science says that it's a little bit more nuanced than we might have thought 20 years ago, right? So this week my volume might have been lower, or my effort might have been lower because I'm trying to recover for the long term, right? So it's super interesting.
Over time. Yeah,
exactly. It's be doing something. If like I said last podcast, episode 2, I think, if there's one thing that you need to know, just start doing something, right? And I mean, don't do anything stupid maybe, but like you can start push-ups in your basement, right? Or pull-ups in your basement, or
air squats,
or
find a table, pull your chest to it,
and
pick up some cinder blocks,
move bricks, and with good posture, so, but yeah, like science gets better, we learn more stuff. The programs are not as intense as people necessarily assume they have to be. There's more variety than people think. We've already mentioned 3 kind of things that fall under this broader category of resistance training and power and strength and hypertrophy, right? So, I mean, do maybe the bare minimum of research and start moving, I think. It's just get your foot in the door,
Yeah. Well, and to continue to kind of highlight, like, what were the major bullet points made. So that was strength. It also says important lifts earlier in the workout. I do think that's an important thing to highlight. I actually had
in programming specifically.
Well, I had a client asking me about that this week, literally, of like, does the order of exercises matter? And all that's basically saying is your more technical, challenging movements where you're like, this is heavy, I'm going to have to focus for this lift. Put that at the start of your workout. You don't want to do that when you're really tired at the end.
I was just talking to a high school football coach about this. And he was saying in his training, he could always tell who was more experienced in their lifting. I mean, I guess he probably curated his workouts a little bit more loosely than, you have 20 kids. You got to. My point is, he could always tell. He could always tell who is more familiar and knew more about their body and how to work out because they do the heavier lifts first, right? Like they do their bench press before they did their shoulder press and their tricep exercises and all this other stuff, right? So yeah, absolutely, order matters in the programming as well. So when you're looking at a program and you see that there's really heavy compound movements, rule of thumb,
put them earlier.
Put them earlier. Yeah.
Don't stress over it too much.
Front load the effort for sure.
Yeah. All right. And then for hypertrophy, biggest drivers were enough weekly volume, which this is kind of saying about. Actually, it said 2 days per week for strength. For hypertrophy, it said you could do as little as 1 day per week if you've got around 10 sets per muscle group. But for most people, that's going to look probably like about 2 days per week minimum to hit that, I would say. And eccentric focused work may help. Concentric is when I squeeze my muscle. Eccentric is when I lengthen my muscle. All that's saying is don't go too fast.
Yeah, be controlled with your movements
simple.
And do them more.
Yeah.
As the hypertrophy training, do more, do them well.
Yeah.
I mean, do everything well, but really like slow down the hypertrophy stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people want to like quickly get through it, and it's like, well, you could do less reps and just do them a little more slow and controlled. There's not this magic number. I think that's another thing too, is I'll have a lot of clients who are like, how many reps am I supposed to do? Because they're at 12 and we're supposed to do 15 and they're dead at 12. And I'm like, just stop there.
That's
like
fine.
There's no magic number that what I wrote on the program has to be exactly there. It should be kind of close because we might be trying to achieve one of those categories. Right, but I guess for your average person who's just trying to get healthy, like if you're in that, I don't know, 5 rep to 25 rep range, and some days you're lower, some days you're higher, you kind of mix it up, you're going to probably have all your bases covered.
And especially if you're tracking it, which I always recommend people do.
Just write your stuff down.
Write your stuff down. Figure out what you did last time. Try and do better.
Progressively.
Yeah. Either more weight or more reps.
Yeah.
And then did you want to cover power too?
The biggest drivers for power, moderate loads. So not too heavy, not too light, kind of medium. Lower to moderate volume. So 1 to 6 reps because you're trying to move something quickly. Not too light though, so that's why you see some people move something really quickly for like 20 reps, and that's not exactly power.
Yeah, it's efficiency of movement, right?
Yeah.
So you're not in the extreme of trying to lift one really heavy thing once or build muscle by lifting. I mean, obviously this will build muscle too, but
Something light a lot of times
Yeah.
for that strong pump burn. It's more.
so yeah,
Well, and even this says moving with speed and intent. So
Yeah.
that was the third biggest driver, and it's not complicated. I mean, that's like get out of your chair as quickly as possible if you can't jump. That is you developing power, explosivity in your movement. If you can jump, do a box jump.
yeah, do that.
Yeah, do a push up quickly. Can't do a single push up, do a push up on a box so that it's more at an incline, so it's not too heavy. Or the opposite, if a push up is really easy for you, do a clapping push up.
Yeah, there's always
Maybe
ways.
put a band around your back.
You can ask any client I've ever had. There's always a way to make a movement harder.
Yeah.
So, all right. What are we talking about next podcast? What can they expect?
We'll dive into the things that people worry about too much in the next one. The things that this review said, well, we thought these things were important, but they're actually not as important as we thought.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. If this information was helpful, please go and leave us a 5-star review that helps us grow and reach more people. This is the Riverview Wellness Podcast, empowering individuals to live and move well. See you next time.